What is up, disc golfers? Today on Iceberg TV, I'm really excited to bring you my review of the entire Kastaplast lineup except for the Rask. I don't have a Rask, but I have every other disc, and I have thrown a Rask, so I will talk about it a little bit at the end. But let's get started with the Berg. So for my collection of Bergs, I think I have a few more somewhere, but I just want to talk about the different types of plastics that the Bergs come in. So the Berg that I most prefer is the K3 plastic Berg. So the K3 Bergs are going to be most like the lowest grade plastic, but I find that they actually fly more stable than the other plastic Bergs, except for the glow. The K1 Bergs are pretty straight to understable in my opinion, but the K1 Glow are more overstable. But back to the K3. The K3 Berg, if anyone who's played with me knows that I absolutely love the Berg and that it's one of my favorite discs, and it's been in my bag for a long time. I don't bag this white one, although it is really cool and it has like that Infinite Discs island stamp on it. I actually bag, I bag this Berg, an orange one, and then I have another orange one that's even more beaten than this. Just to show you guys like what the Berg is shaped like. It kind of comes with this ridge around like a thumb track here, but mine are a little bit warped because I've thrown them so much. I've never seen another Berg look like this, but honestly this is kind of how I like it because I only forehand my Bergs, and it's really nice for my thumb to have that gross ridge in there. So really, I just find like a real nasty one to put my thumb in, and I like throwing this for flat shots and Anheuser shots. And the Kastaplast Berg, in my opinion, is probably one of the most underrated approach discs ever made. And I think Kastaplast took a risk making a disc with a more unusual shape to it, but I think that they nailed it with this disc, and I think that this is one of the best throwing putters available. I would advise using it as a putting putter. It's a bit too slow. It doesn't have enough glide. You'll find yourself putting too hard and being inaccurate, and unless you really like thumb tracks for putting, I wouldn't advise putting with it, but that's just my personal opinion. Moving on to the K2 Berg. K2 Berg is going to be a little bit more durable, a bit more slidey on the ground, so when it hits the ground you're going to get a little bit more ground action than the K3. And then step up from that, the K1 Glow. Everyone knows Kastaplast has the best glow, and I have a lot of glow that you guys will see specifically for the reason that Kastaplast just has the best glow, so I wanted to get a lot of discs in their lineup, so when I go play glow I actually have good discs to throw. Now, as far as the K1 goes, the K1 is going to be more stable than the K1 and the K2 in the glow, but a normal K1 Berg I found is actually probably the least stable of all of them. But that's just from my experience, and we tested out these 6 for the video, and we're going to move on to the Rico. The next disc, the next putter is more of a traditional beadless putter. It's going to be the Rico. So I tested the Rico out just in a K3 plastic. I've thrown K1 Ricos, they're really nice throwing putters. As far as the K3 goes, they have an understable to straight flight. You can throw them out on a hyzer and they will hyzer flip up. But if there's a tailwind or no wind at all, then a lot of times you're able to just throw them nice and flat, and they will hold a pretty decent line. But I find that when I throw this one into a headwind or either of these, it'll flip right over and turn into a roller in a headwind. But really reliable throwing putter in still conditions or tailwinds, or if you get one in a more premium plastic, it'll have a lot more high-speed stability. Most people use the K3 Ricos just for putting, and what I really like about the Ricos, as far as the feel in the hand, I used to putt with these full time, and they're really, really flat. They are beadless, and they have, they're almost puddle top. So actually most of these Ricos are puddle top. The K3 Ricos usually have a puddle top on them. And what that means is a couple of things. It's comfortable in the hand, it's low profile, but it also doesn't have as much glide as like a domey putter would. Something like my KC AVR is obviously gonna get a lot more glide. But if you find yourself somebody who you putt long and you putt too hard, or your putters are too understable for you, these actually act quite overstable as a putting putter. And these ones are just beat into the point to where they putt pretty straight, but I find that I still prefer my KC AVRs to these guys. But really good disc. They have them in glow. The glow Ricos specifically are really good as throwing putters. The next disc I want to go over is going to be the Yota, or the GOAT. The Americans would call it the GOAT, or the Australians. The GOAT is going to be just like a straight beaded domey mid-range that's gonna have pretty good glide. It's supposed to have just a straight flight and then a little bit of fade. I find that I don't love this mold, mostly because it's just really domey and it has a huge bead on it. So it's like a larger diameter, like domey rock, and the plastic feels really good and it's really close to being a really comfortable mold. But it's just not quite there in my opinion. I don't know a lot of people who bag this disc, and anytime you see the mint colored ones come out, these are the first runs. And I do find that this disc has a lot of reliable glide, and if you really don't like the Innova Rock, or you don't like an MD3 and you don't like the Mako, this is kind of a weird amalgamation of all of those discs put together. It's got like the dome, the big bead, like kind of the profile of an understable disc, but then still has the big bead on it. So it's a little bit all over the place as far as the mold goes, but I've really been enjoying testing it, but it's definitely not gonna make my bag. But if you're looking for a straight mid and you don't really have a mid that you like, maybe you need something more unique in your bag like this. But currently I love my buzzes so much that I probably won't bag this guy. They have another mid-range coming out called the Svea soon, and it's going to be more like a Mako, another straight to understable mid, probably because they know that that one's not great. But the next disc in their lineup's sort of that like hybrid mid to fairway slot, and we have the Kaxa. Which is the more stable of the two discs. It's really, if you want something like an overstable Leopard or like a slower T-Bird, it falls somewhere between that, this Kaxa does. So the Kaxa is gonna get a really nice straight flight, and it says it has a 0 turn and a 3 fade, but when I throw this disc with some power, it usually gets a nice turn on it and then a little bit of a fade. I would consider this like a slow T-Bird, but still very reliable, and again, I use this in glow all the time. Anytime I come up to a hole where I need to throw straight and I want to throw it flat, I can pump this flat and hard and it will go straight. And then the Kaxa Z is sort of, it's quite similar. This one's pretty beat in and it has a really gross smiley face die on it. This one's my dad's. He really likes this thing mostly just for hyzer upshots when his buzz isn't quite fast or glidey enough. This is basically a longer buzz to him. So again, it's that not quite a fairway driver, not quite a mid-range, but somewhere in between. Very slow fairway driver, and I think slow fairway drivers don't get enough love in disc golf because they still have big distance and glide, but they're a little bit more controllable and move a bit slower through the air. The next two discs are going to be the fairway drivers. We have the Kastaplast Falk. This thing is an absolute bomber. This is a disc that if I was to bag it, I'm releasing it on a good amount of hyzer and I'm getting it to flip up and turn and then fade. I'm not sure what the specific flight numbers are, but in my eyes, this is like a -2-2. So like a -2 turn and 2 fade. Put it out on hyzer, get it up, give it some height, get it up in the air. This thing's gonna go just as far as, you know, anybody's Wraith, a lot of people's Destroyers. This thing gets really big distance, and when testing it, this went just as far as the Kastaplast drivers as well. So I think, I used to bag a K2 Falk. This is a K2 Falk as well, I believe. And yeah, it's quite understable, really good for tailwind bombs. You can still get that full flex in tailwinds, it'll flip right over. Really reliable turn on this disc. And it even holds up in headwinds as well. You just want to make sure you put enough hyzer on it. But massive distance, I really like this disc. And now, Kastaplast has a disc that is a 9403. This is going to be the Stahl. So the Kastaplast Stahl is basically their alternative to like an Innova Firebird. So most people are forehanding their Stahl or throwing it in a headwind. If I have a strong headwind, I'm gonna be honest, and I throw this flat, it's actually gonna turn a little bit. I believe you'll see it in the throwing clip. It'll actually turn over and then fade. You can like really flex it out, but that's only in a very strong headwind. And this is a really reliable forehand disc for any forehand utility shots, forehand tee shots, forehand flexes, and skip shots. Anything where you want that dependable, overstable Firebird-like flight. The Kastaplast Stahl is actually a really good choice for you. And again, I have this one in glow. I specifically bought this because I didn't want to throw my glow Firebirds because I don't want to lose them because Innova Glow is not that good. So I have this and I use this as my Firebird in glow. So a really good disc. I really like the Stahl, and I think it's another one of those underrated discs that I think has a place in a lot more people's bags, especially if you don't bag Innova or you don't like Innova. This is a really good option for you to not have an Innova disc that flies like a Firebird. Moving on to the lots. So in my opinion, the Lots is Kastaplast's best attempt at making a driver. It's going to be a 9 speed with a 5 glide, -1 turn, and a 2 fade. If you like something like a slightly slower Wraith that gets big distance, or like if something like a really stable Sidewinder sounds appealing to you, then this is a driver that you're definitely going to want. We tested out 2 of the first runs, and yeah, I mean, you can smoke these things flat. It'll get a good turn, good fade, headwind, smash it on hyzer, good turn, good fade. And there's definitely room for error with this disc. I even got caught throwing it in the headwind pretty flat a couple of times, and it's still just like turn, fade, reliable fade. I think if you throw Kastaplast and you're not throwing the Lots, then I think you're making a big mistake. It's very shallow. Very comfortable in the hand. It's not that fast, so the rim's not that wide. Very comfortable in the hand, but still gets you the big distance of like a normal distance driver. So the Lots definitely gets the thumbs up in my book, and I really like this disc. I find it to be really good, and another underrated disc. If, again, you don't like wide rim drivers, like I know my dad doesn't like wide rim drivers, he's bagging this as his wide rim driver because he finds these easier to throw, and the shallow rim is easier for a lot of players, especially newer players, to hold on to. This is a really good option for backhand and for forehand as well. And now we're going to move over to the Grims. So the first Grim is one that Darren dyed for me, so I got a nice Darren dye job on here. The Grim, if I was to throw a full Kastaplast bag, the Grim and the Lots would be my main two drivers. You can get Grims that fly like any disc. I find that the glow Grims are a lot more flat and the non-glow Grims are a lot more pop-toppy. So if you can get a nice pop-top Grim, those are typically more understable, and you can really bomb them for those max distance, high-speed turn type flights. But if I throw this thing high, hard, and flat, it'll just hold the turn the whole way. So big Anheuser lines, really good for those kinds of shots. And again, this is my main driver when I play glow. Particularly this one is super overstable. I just can smash this thing pretty much full power, hard and flat, and it literally might turn like, might be a 0.1 turn and then just like hard fade, and that's like 450 feet of power being put on it, and it just barely turns. So if you can get yourself a flat glow Grim, they are very overstable, very reliable for backhand and for forehand. And I love playing glow because I love throwing these. This is a 2017 glow Grim, and I really love throwing these older Kastaplast discs just because I think it's cool. But definitely like the Grim, and it's pretty similar to a Wraith, I would say, but maybe just a hair more overstable on the flat ones. And then if you get a Domi one, very much less stable than a Wraith. So really good disc, and it's one of those molds where you can bag like 3 or 4 of them that all have different flights, and you could have a really good setup of drivers. So we got the 2 Grims, definitely thumbs up, good mold. And then Grim X. Headwind bomber disc. If you can get a pop top Grim X, they're surprisingly understable. If you find that you don't like the Grim, you may find yourself liking the Grim X. The Grim X is quite a bit more overstable. It's got a little bit more concave under the rim here, so it's supposed to be more overstable. So if you want that reliable headwind disc for backhand and for forehand, I throw my forehand drives in when we play glow. This is another dye job by Darren. Crazy dye. He's got some skills. So he made me this lyrical lemonade dye. I absolutely love this disc. So anytime we play glow, I'm using this for any forehand big drives. And then upon testing these other Grim X's, I find that again the glow is a little bit more overstable, but especially this orange, or this, I don't even know what color this is. It's like some sort of purplish red fuchsia type color. The more domey Grimexes really do have a big turn on them and then a strong fade. Basically, I find that the domier the Grimex, the more turn it's gonna have, but it doesn't really affect the fade as much. It's still gonna have a strong fade. So if you prefer I don't really see a purpose to bag the Grim and the Grimex unless you just want to. I think it makes sense to carry a bunch of the same mold and just get ones that fly different. That's my personal opinion. It's one of those molds where you can have a bunch of them and have them basically all fly differently. So the last disc I want to talk about is the Rask, and I don't have a Rask, but the Rask has, like how the Berg has like a thumb track on top, the Rask has basically a forehand finger track on the bottom. So it has a secondary lip under it, so when you throw a stack grip forehand, one finger's in the rim of the disc and then the other finger sits on that finger track for your finger. It's really odd. They're really overstable, crazy beefy. A lot of people like them for forehands. I don't really like it, which is why I don't have one here. And as far as Kastaplast goes, if you have any questions, leave it in the comment section down below. I'll try to answer all the comments within reason. And yeah, just think Kastaplast is a really cool brand, and I really want to try out their new mid-range, the Sphia, when it comes out. Hopefully pick up a couple of mint first run ones. That's always part of the fun of getting Kastaplast, is once you finally get on board when the new molds come out, it's always fun to get a couple of the minty ones because they always increase in value a lot as time goes on. So even if you get them and you don't throw them, then they increase in value. And but anyway, I think they're meant to be thrown regardless, so I'll throw it even if it is a nice mint first run one. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Kastaplast. I like some of their molds, don't like some of their molds, but definitely want to get that information out there. And I thought I could do individual reviews for each disc or just get the whole brand out in one video, and I think that'd be more useful for everybody. But anyway, thank you for watching. This is Iceberg TV, and if you want to become a patron, the link is in the description below as well. Don't forget to leave a comment, hit the like button, and subscribe. This is Iceberg TV, and take care.